Reginald Blackwood had cultivated a need for order during his years working covert ops in the jungles of Southeast Asia. He couldn't stand disorder invading his life. Precision was required. In his mind, neatness equaled survival. It all began with Reginald Blackwood, a highly trained operative and former recon Marine, finishing what was to be his last approved assignment with his special unit. They had infiltrated and demolished a human trafficking ring in Cambodia, but upon their return, they received shocking news. The operation had been completely unsanctioned by command. This revelation hit the team hard, and as a direct result, they were immediately dismissed from service. With no orders to follow and no one to answer to, the team members scattered to their civilian lives. Reginald, now jobless and aimless, chose to go back to his hometown of Harmony Creek to rest and think about his future. The change from elite operative to civilian was difficult, leaving him feeling lost and restless. The story moves to the quiet town of Harmony Creek, where it focuses on Beatrice Ainsworth, a caring and enthusiastic grade school teacher at Harmony Creek Elementary. Beatrice was leading a lively history class, totally involved in helping her students understand the American Revolution. Her classroom was usually a safe place for learning and growth. However, this peaceful setting was suddenly broken when chaos erupted throughout the school. A mean and organized prank war broke out among the children, and it quickly became clear that this wasn't just some kids being kids. It seemed to be planned and aimed at one particular sweet little boy. Beatrice and her fellow teacher, Mr. Abernathy, bravely jumped into the middle of the chaos to stop the bullying. Even though they were putting themselves in danger, they managed to separate the children and protect the boy from getting hurt. Surprisingly, the boy insisted that he didn't need their help, clearly trying to seem tough and not like he was weak. After the incident, Beatrice tried to talk to the ringleader, a nasty kid named Billy the Butcher Bartlett. Billy wasn't just any troublemaker. He was the feared and cold leader of a group called the Rattlesnakes. Beatrice, like a loving mother, tried to reach out to him, showing real worry for his future and asking him to think about changing his ways. Billy looked at her with hard, cruel eyes, making fun of her attempts to help and giving her a scary warning to stay out of his business. He then walked away, showing off his arrogance, making it obvious that he wasn't going to listen to her or change his ways. Still upset but wanting to do something, Beatrice and Mr. Abernathy immediately went to Principal Eleanor Truman to tell her about what happened and Billy's threat. They begged the principal to take serious action against Billy and his gang, especially after Beatrice said that she had been threatened. But Principal Truman brushed off their concerns, saying that there wasn't enough proof to kick Billy out of school. Beatrice got angry and stormed out of the office, saying that she would get the proof needed to make something happen. When Beatrice got to her old blue station wagon in the parking lot after school, she found herself surrounded by members of the Rattlesnakes gang. Someone had stuck chewing gum in the door locks, making it very hard to get in. The gang members made fun of her and bothered her, laughing and yelling rude names as she fought with her keys. The sun was setting, casting long shadows that made the scene even scarier. Billy made an obscene gesture at her, but Beatrice didn't let them scare her. She bravely made the same gesture back, but upside down, showing that she wasn't backing down. Finally, she managed to unlock the car door and drove away while the gang kept yelling mean and threatening things behind her. The smell of burning rubber filled the air as she sped off. When Beatrice got home, she was happy and relieved to see Reginald waiting for her. She ran into his strong arms, feeling happy and safe after their long time apart. Reginald said that he had been honorably discharged from the Marines, and they spent the evening talking about their future, wondering what job he might get now that his time in the military was over. Soon after, Reginald got a voicemail from an old buddy, Terry the Tank Thompson. There was a possible job that could pay a lot of money for his skills. They set up a meeting at a fancy diner to talk about the offer. The jukebox played old tunes, adding to the atmosphere. Terry, one of Reginald's most trusted friends from the Marines, told him to think hard about this job. He introduced Reginald to the person offering the job and to a rival named Victor Popov. Popov would later prove to be very dangerous and would try to kill Reginald when their paths crossed again. Reginald quickly found out that the job was to provide armed security for illegal moonshine shipments, protecting them from other gangs and the police. This kind of work went against Reginald's morals. He was a man of honor who refused to do anything illegal, no matter how much money he was offered. Reginald turned down the job, saying that there was a big difference between a soldier and a criminal. The difference was their sense of right and wrong and their willingness to cross the line. Popov took the job instead, starting his journey into the criminal world. The next morning, Beatrice decided to go for her usual walk along the river trail near their house. She didn't know that a member of the rattlesnakes was hiding in the bushes, waiting for the right moment to attack. As she walked past, he jumped out and hit her leg with a wooden bat, continuing his brutal attack. Luckily, Reginald was nearby, fixing his old Ford truck, and heard the noise. He ran to her, arriving just in time to scare off the attacker before she was seriously hurt. He quickly took Beatrice to the local clinic for treatment. The air smelled of gasoline and wildflowers. While recovering from her injuries, Beatrice told Reginald that she thought the attack had been planned, possibly involving corrupt people at the school. She asked Reginald to cover her classes for the next few days and make the phone calls needed to take care of her duties. Seeing how upset and scared she was, Reginald promised that he wouldn't let anything else happen to her. He promised that whoever was responsible would pay for what they did. After making sure she was comfortable, he left her to rest and started planning to go undercover as a substitute teacher in her place. Reginald was determined to find those responsible and bring them to justice. He and his old team from the Marines made a plan to sneak into the school. To hide his real identity and his connection to Beatrice, he used the name Richard Davies. Using this fake name, he applied for a job with the school district and was soon called in for an interview. During the interview, Principal Truman seemed friendly. She told Mr. Davies that he would be on probation for a while to see how he did. Davies said that he would do his best as Beatrice's temporary replacement. The principal's office was filled with the smell of old books and floor wax. Although he seemed calm during the interview, Davies was focused on his secret mission to find out who had attacked Beatrice and uncover any corruption in the school. On his first day of teaching, Davies walked into a classroom full of noisy, disrespectful children. The room was a mess, but Davies didn't let it bother him. He calmly walked to the front of the room and started taking attendance, watching each child's behavior. As he watched the children, he began to understand how bad the problems were at the school. Many children didn't care about learning, and there were no real rules. Later in the teacher's lounge, Davies met Mr. Abernathy and the school librarian, Mrs. Peabody. During their conversation, Abernathy said how dangerous the Rattlesnakes gang had become at the school. The gang had taken control through fear and violence. Mrs. Peabody added that she thought the gang might be responsible for Beatrice's attack. She even suggested that Principal Truman might be working with the gang, though Abernathy defended Truman, saying that she was a good person who wouldn't do such a thing. The lounge smelled of stale coffee and old newspapers. Despite Abernathy's defense, Davies became more and more suspicious of Truman's true motives. During a private meeting with the principal, Davies noticed things that didn't seem right for a school principal. He noticed that Truman was wearing an expensive diamond ring that seemed too fancy for her job. Their conversation became a battle of wits, with each person trying to figure out the other's knowledge and intentions. They made comments meant to test reactions and reveal hidden information. Davies commented on Truman's confidence in wearing such valuable jewelry in a supposedly dangerous school. Truman responded by saying that she kept control of the students through power and fear, suggesting that those were better tools than justice. This made Davies even more suspicious of the principal's true character and possible criminal connections. That evening, Davies met with his old team from the Marines and made a plan to watch the school. They would secretly install hidden cameras throughout the school to watch the movements of the rattlesnakes, gathering proof of their crimes. Some team members weren't sure about the plan, but eventually most agreed to help. The next day in class, Davies started a lesson about military strategy. As he turned to write on the blackboard, a boy named Mikey threw a spitball at his head. With quick reflexes from his years of combat training, Davies caught the spitball in midair and immediately threw it back, hitting Mikey right in the forehead. The children were shocked by this show of speed and accuracy. Mikey stood up, ready to fight, with his classmates cheering him on. But Davies easily defended himself using non-lethal moves. He twisted Mikey's arm and pinned him to the floor without using too much force or causing serious injury. Davies then went to another boy named Frankie, who he had seen carrying a pocket knife. He calmly asked Frankie to give him the knife. When Frankie refused, Davies grabbed his wrist and pressed on a pressure point, causing him to drop the knife. This action sent a clear message to the class that Davies wasn't a typical substitute teacher who could be pushed around. From that moment on, the classroom became quiet and respectful. The air was thick with anticipation. Davies took control of the classroom and started teaching an engaging lesson, earning the children's respect through his strength and knowledge. Mikey and Frankie later went to the school nurse and told Principal Truman about what happened. Truman quickly sent the school janitor, Gus, to Davies's classroom to check on the situation. But when Gus arrived, he saw something unexpected. The classroom was peaceful, with children sitting and listening to the lesson. Gus was confused by this and went back to Truman with his surprising report. Truman, surprised by this, decided to wait and see what happened. As the class went on, Billy the Butcher Bartlett, the leader of the rattlesnakes, tried to scare Davies by asking if he had ever killed anyone. The question was meant to unnerve him, but Davies remained calm. Later that day, Davies watched the school through the hidden cameras that his teammate Jackson had installed. While watching the monitors, he saw Principal Truman walking towards his classroom with clear, hostile intentions. Reacting quickly, Davies made everything look normal. When Truman walked into the classroom, she immediately raised concerns about lawsuits from the parents. Truman demanded that Davies apologize to avoid being fired, but Davies knew employment law. He said that he couldn't be fired without a 2-week notice. His legal knowledge unsettled Truman, who hadn't expected such resistance. Growing suspicious of Davies's confidence, Truman ordered a background check on his credentials. But the check only showed the fake documents that Davies and his team had planted as part of their operation. Later that evening, Davies drove Beatrice home from her doctor's appointment. As she walked into the house, she found a letter from some of her students thanking her for her dedication. Touched by this, Beatrice started to cry. Davies tried to comfort her, but their emotions led to an argument about the risks he was taking. Despite their disagreement, they both cared about each other and were committed to protecting the students. The next morning, Davies returned to the classroom ready to teach. Billy Bartlett and his gang walked in late, trying to start a fight. Davies addressed Billy's tardiness, assigning him extra work. Billy sarcastically asked if he should write an apology on the blackboard 10 times. Davies increased the punishment, demanding that he write it 100 times instead. Billy agreed but made a veiled threat. Refusing to be scared, Davies changed the tone of the class by starting a discussion about the students' futures, goals, and the consequences of their choices. Slowly, the students began to open up, their defenses fading as they realized Davies was trying to help them see possibilities beyond their current lives. The discussion became emotional and powerful. forcing the students to face the realities of their situations. After the lesson, Truman unexpectedly appeared, complimenting Davies on his handling of Billy's behavior. Truman seemed impressed that Davies had kept control of the classroom without violence. She invited Davies to meet with her later to discuss his teaching methods. Unknown to Davies, Truman had other plans. That same day, she secretly met with Billy Bartlett to plan an attack on Davies. They thought it was time to get rid of him before he could uncover more of their crimes. Luckily, Davies was already expecting this. He had been watching their secret meeting through the surveillance cameras and started preparing. As darkness fell, Davies put on protective gear, including a bulletproof vest, and chose a defensive position in the school gymnasium. Billy and a group of criminals hired by Truman burst into the gymnasium, starting a fight. Davies fought back. Using his military training, he defeated the attackers, throwing their bodies through the gym windows. Just as Davies was about to deal with Billy, one of the gang members grabbed his weapon and fired at Davies. Luckily, his bulletproof vest absorbed the impact. Billy ordered the shooter to kill the librarian, Mrs. Peabody, to get rid of witnesses. But when the attackers thought they had killed Davies and moved toward Mrs. Peabody, Davies revealed that he was alive. He threw the gunman through the window, leaving Billy shocked by Davies's apparent invincibility. Later, Truman was leaving the building when she saw Davies, who seemed calm. Surprised by Davies's survival, Truman tried to act innocent. Davies played along, pretending nothing had happened and asking Truman about their meeting. Caught off guard, Truman mumbled that it was too late, and they parted ways without revealing the truth about the attempted assassination. Meanwhile, Mr. Abernathy visited Beatrice to provide support. During their conversation, Abernathy started connecting the dots. Based on his knowledge of the situation and Davies's behavior, he started to suspect that Davies might actually be Reginald Blackwood, Beatrice's husband and former Marine. Elsewhere, Reginald's teammate Terry kept watching the gang's activities. He followed Billy Bartlett and contacted Reginald with details about the gang's location and plans. That evening, Reginald returned home to find Beatrice upset. She had discovered his true identity. She said that she had learned everything from Abernathy's observations. Reginald didn't deny it. Instead, he told her about his suspicions regarding Truman's collaboration with the rattlesnakes and his determination to stop their crimes to protect the students. The surveillance team kept watching the gang's operations. One day, Terry contacted Reginald with information about a moonshine transaction near the docks. Reginald arrived and watched the rattlesnakes negotiating with buyers. Once they confirmed the deal, Reginald and Terry attacked. Reginald focused on the gang members, while Terry handled the buyers trying to escape by boat. During the battle, one of Reginald's former teammates, Ryan Hall, who had disagreed with their mission, ordered another team member, Bruce, to eliminate Reginald. A fight broke out between Bruce and Reginald. Eventually, Reginald managed to knock Bruce unconscious. Seeing Reginald's commitment to justice, the teammate changed his mind and decided to help. Together, they defeated Bruce, seized the money, and dumped the moonshine into the ocean. The next morning, Truman watched a news report about the bust. While processing the news, she received a threatening phone call from the crime boss, who was angry about the losses. The boss demanded immediate payment. In a panic, Truman rushed to the school and confronted Billy about the operation. During their conversation, she realized that Davies was responsible. Davies announced that the money recovered had been used to improve the school and provide free meals for students. While he was making this announcement, Truman terminated his employment. However, Davies's actions had earned him support from faculty, students, and Abernathy, who now endorsed his mission to clean up the school. Abernathy offered to help, but Davies warned him to be careful, especially since Truman might be working with criminals. Abernathy wanted to believe in Truman's innocence, but his judgment was clouded by misplaced trust. Later that night, Reginald was attacked again. The gang, along with Truman, were trying to get rid of him because his investigation was exposing their crimes. In the darkness, Reginald narrowly escaped an ambush. Gunshots rang out, and Reginald's truck crashed into a building. However, his training enabled him to avoid serious injury. Simultaneously, Abernathy, who had been helping Davies, became involved in dangerous activities. In the school's basement, Abernathy tried to gather proof of the gang's drug operations. Unfortunately, he was discovered by Billy and Carlos, criminals involved in the trafficking network. Abernathy was killed, and Truman carried out the execution. Abernathy's death was shocking, devastating everyone. Fortunately, a student witnessed the killing and later told Reginald and the police what he had seen. The next morning, news of Abernathy's death spread. Truman, continuing her role as the corrupt principal, spread rumors that Reginald had also been killed. Many mourned his supposed death, fearing that the school was hopeless without him. However, to everyone's shock, Reginald appeared at the school, determined to continue his mission. His survival caused confusion among those involved in the gang's operations. Reginald's continued existence was proof that the corrupt forces would not win easily. With tensions at their peak, Reginald confronted Mr. Dawson, a faculty member who had been supporting the gang's operations. Reginald challenged Dawson about his betrayal. The confrontation was intense, exposing the corruption that had infiltrated the school. Meanwhile, the rattlesnakes attacked Beatrice's home. The gang broke windows, shouted threats, and tried to scare Beatrice. The student who had witnessed Abernathy's murder was looking for Reginald to report what he had seen, so he visited his home with a classmate. However, Billy also tracked them to the house and took them hostage, waiting for Reginald's arrival. Reginald arrived in time to attempt a rescue, but the gang didn't realize he was the same person as their teacher Davies. They unknowingly allowed him to enter the house, but after his initial attacks he was overpowered. Unable to escape, Reginald found himself at a disadvantage. Billy called his superiors to tell them that Reginald Blackwood and Richard Davies were the same person. Upon receiving this information, the crime boss ordered Billy to eliminate Reginald. This showed how far the gang was willing to go to silence anyone who opposed them. Just before Billy was about to execute Reginald, he heard the doorbell ring and ordered Beatrice to answer it. It was Beatrice's landlady checking on the disturbance. While Beatrice convinced her to leave, Reginald stabbed one of his captors in the leg with a knife. He managed to neutralize most of the attackers, but he was unable to rescue Beatrice from Billy's grasp. Billy placed his weapon against Beatrice's head, demanding that Reginald surrender his weapon. With no other options, Reginald dropped his weapon. However, at the crucial moment, the student kicked Billy's gun away from Beatrice's head, disarming him and creating an opportunity for Reginald to regain control. With the immediate threat neutralized, Reginald shifted his attention to Truman. The story builds toward a final confrontation back at the school, where Reginald and his allies prepare to face the rattlesnakes in a last stand. The battle was intense, with classrooms destroyed and the school transformed into a war zone. Several lives were lost, highlighting the consequences of allowing gangs to infiltrate schools. Despite the destruction, Reginald and his team fought with determination. They dismantled the gang's control on the school, eliminating members and exposing their network. Several members of Reginald's team died during the battle. One was shot in the head and another sacrificed himself by detonating explosives to eliminate a group of criminals who had them pinned down. The violence continued, but at a critical moment Truman shot Ryan Hall in the back. She and her associates then concealed themselves, waiting for Reginald to appear. Reginald was cautious when he entered the area. He turned off the lights, using darkness as tactical advantage. A battle erupted between Reginald and Truman, with Truman appearing desperate while Reginald delivered strikes. One of Truman's men shot Reginald in the shoulder, but the shooter was killed by Hall, who was using his last breath to protect his friend. Now that only the two remained, Their final confrontation began. The combat continued, with both men exchanging blows. After a struggle, Truman retrieved a weapon and pointed it at Reginald, demanding to know his motivation. If it wasn't for money, what was driving him? Reginald replied, "Some principles cannot be compromised, and some things are worth fighting for, regardless of personal cost." He then delivered the final blow that ended Truman's life. Finally, Reginald found Terry injured but alive in the aftermath of the battle. At the conclusion of this chapter, only Reginald and Terry remained standing. With the gang broken and the leadership eliminated, the school could begin the process of recovery. The students and faculty would regain control, transforming it back into a place of safety. The community had learned a lesson about the importance of vigilance against corruption and the courage required to stand up for what is right, even when facing danger.